Okay, folks, we are back on the second segment of the night talk. And why don't you invite someone to listen? I hope we have time for calls. Our next guest is a guest of Tubman University, Sir Donald L. Cassell Jr., architect and also Master of Divinity. He's the director of the Liberia Initiatives in Indianapolis and a senior fellow at the Sagamore Institute in the USA. Sir, it is a pleasure having you on the Night Talk.
Thank you so much. It's likewise a great pleasure to be here.
And is this your first time in Maryland County?
Yes, in spite of the fact that I am from Liberia, most of my family come from Montserrat and Bong area, but this is my first time, all my travels back and forth, coming this far south. So, yes, my first time.
I hope you had I don't know, did you fly or?
Yes, I flew.
Okay.
Yes, by MAF.
MAF, right.
Yes.
You because the road is quite challenging at this time of year.
Yes, I was advised against using the roads.
Strongly advised.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Welcome to Tubman University Radio Phoenix, and let's roll right into business.
Thank you.
Well, you are here as a guest of the university. People might be wondering, what are you here to do?
At the Sagamore Institute, as part of its instruments in terms of outreach, practice, and research, I run a leadership workshop called the ISOCO Leadership Workshop, and I run that workshop once a year in Liberia. Actually, I have done it for 10 years, but there's only been 9 sessions because 2020 COVID did not allow me to travel, but the workshop was still operative at that time. So it's been 10 years in operation. So yes, and that's what I do. Yes.
Okay. And so are you going to be conducting that workshop here in Maryland?
Well, because it takes me about 4 weeks to go through it, this time around, it was merely an introduction. So I went through with the young people, some of the young people, particularly the leaders, student leaders on campus, a truncated version of that. So within about 2 hours or so, had gone through what we normally do in 4 weeks. So it was just simply an introduction, telling them how we approach it, that the workshop is a focus on character and learning, so spirituality and intellectuality, and then the various texts that we go through the workshop and the leaders that we focus on and things like that. Yes.
Okay, so I don't know, how long are you going to stay here at Tubman University?
I leave tomorrow morning.
Oh.
So it was a quick day's visit. I know your president well. We met in professional circumstances and realized there was mutual interest. And so I was coming here, and he asked me to come. And so the staff of the university, including Dr. Maria, have been very considerate. They have nobly received me very well. So that is the first time we'll do this, and I'm hoping that there can be some discussion as to what other ways we can do this going forward. And so I'm looking forward to having those discussions with them in the months ahead.
Okay, in the months ahead, we hope it's not in the years ahead, because I believe people are going to be eager to have your input here at Tubman University.
Yes, I have. I mean, I've enjoyed the responses from the students. It's been robust. So yes, they plan right now in the main, in general, to be back within a year's time, but we have to work through the complications of dates and schedules and all those kinds of things like that to see when I can be back here. Yes.
Okay. So, folks, we are here, and so Donald L. Cassell Jr. is my next guest in studio. He's an architect and a Master of Divinity and director of the Liberia Initiatives in Indianapolis, USA, as well as a senior fellow at the Sagamore Institute, also in the USA. And he's here for a quick visit. Sorry, are you going to be prepared to take some calls from our audience? No. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it depends. I didn't anticipate that.
Okay.
Perhaps
The show is usually interactive, but
yes,
nonetheless,
one or two calls, I guess we could.
Okay. Nonetheless, let's continue. You an architect. May I ask how long you've been into architecture and whatnot?
Well, I guess it goes back many
very
years.
long time.
Yes, I used to draw very well when I was a little boy, and then I told my mother I wanted to be an architect. I mean, an artist, and she said, "No, don't be an artist. Artists don't get paid. Be an architect." And that stuck in my head. I said the only thing my mother didn't realize is that architects didn't get paid either. But
Well,
I pursue that.
You know, I ask this question because Tubman University was initially TC, that's the William V.S. Tubman College of Science and Technology.
Yes.
And it was only an engineering institution
Yes.
which put out some great architects and other branches of engineering in Liberia. That's
Yes.
why I asked. And in that light, how could you maybe try to beef up the mother college here at Tubman University through maybe your connections and all of that?
Right now, in talking with the president of the university, I thought maybe some partnerships with some of the universities in Indiana could be good. Many people may not realize it, but Indiana University has a very long-running relationship with Liberia that goes back to the 1930s.
Wow.
And we could expand that. The university itself.
Relationship in terms of education?
Yes, education
Okay.
and scholarship and research.
Wow.
And sometimes the extent of the scholarship and the extent of the research can be debated, but in terms of its value, but nevertheless, that has been there. And for the most part, it's been a positive experience. So the thing is, we need to consider how can we expand that? How can we expand that beyond the University of Liberia and include Tubman University here in this part of the country? In addition to that, it's not only Indiana University, there are other universities in Indiana that may be interested in a partnership with Tubman University. So those are lots of areas that could be explored for opportunities of service, of development, of capacity building, etc.
Right. Perhaps an exchange of faculty to come over at TU.
Yes,
and all
an
of that.
exchange of faculty.
I hope I'm not too ambitious.
No, you're not. It's good to keep that in mind, especially I think oftentimes, at least my experience in working in this space for a number of years now, 15 or more years, is that once you have a strong domestic partner, a strong partner on the ground, it's not too much of a press to get an international partner. The struggle is when you don't have a strong domestic partner, then it can be rather difficult to get a strong international partner, because international partners, in fact, like to see a strong domestic partner so that they know that the time and investment will not be wasted. And since we do have now within Tubman University a strong domestic partner, I think some of your aspirations and hope could be realized.
All right, and let's be clear, by a strong domestic partner, you're talking about Professor Dr. Olumenje. Am I correct?
Yes, but his staff, he himself have told me that he's impressed with the quality of his staff and the way I have been received. I mean, he is not here, but that staff have done a whole lot to receive me well, and I would say it's not only him, but he has built around him a fairly strong staff also,
And
at least from my quick experience here.
Right. Okay, so have you taken a tour of Hopper?
Yes, I was taken over by some of the staff again just recently for about an hour. Yes, about
Okay.
an hour's tour. I was truly impressed with it. I took some pictures.
The old architecture.
The old architecture was really, really impressive. I took some pictures and sent it to relatives and friends. And the building, I was standing across the Cape area there, and I took a picture, and it captured the Methodist Church. And some of my friends got back to me because it was an impressive vision. I was just showing him the question they asked me about that building. They were so impressed with it, and I said yes. And then they came back and said, but it's so very European. I said, yes, Liberians did that in the First Republic, and maybe that was part of the troubles, but that was a whole lot of that kind of reflection in Liberia. Though I think it's still adaptive to Liberia and its needs. But yes, it's a decent piece of work. The Methodist Church, which is what this person was pointing to, but also I saw the Roman Catholic.
And the Episcopal Church.
Okay, I did not see that.
Oh, you should have seen that. It's Gothic design.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, and I think I've seen that in photos, but I did not see that this time. But the Methodist Church, I was really quite impressed with it. I was quite impressed with the layout of the Roman Catholic Church, and the long and great stairs, grand stairways that go up to it. All those things were really impressive. I think we do need a whole lot of restoration. I was a bit troubled with the decline, the buildings being degraded, and I think we should focus on restoring those buildings as much as we possibly can.
I was just about coming to that. Restoration and preservation of what's left of Liberia's antiquities.
Yes.
What, in your opinion, could be done? Which agency or arm of government is responsible for that?
That is a very good thing. I know that we are trying we've tried with some friends, and we are not the lead. The Sagamore Institute is not the lead, but there are other Liberians who are the lead. They have established at the University of Liberia an architectural program, and part of the international partnerships that are being worked on right now has a whole lot to do with historic restoration, preservation, and ecology, some of the concerns with climate change and all of that. So there are lots of people who will be specifically oriented toward that kind of thing. And then from there, if you at least have it well documented, then perhaps funding could be sought from various agencies around the world as to how we go about restoring some of these architectural masterpieces or historic pieces of architecture in Liberia.
And maybe UNESCO, I think they're involved with such ventures?
Yes, UNESCO could be a good place. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, there's UN Habitat have also written some good, produced some good work on at least the city of Monrovia. I'm not sure whether they've discussed, at least a document that I saw was focused on the city of Monrovia. But this is in fact a historic city, Harper here, that something like that could be turned. Though there are private organizations that you can go to, and you may get even better traction there and less bureaucratic setup there in some of the private organizations that might be interested in that. Of course, UNESCO, but the UN Heritage and all those kinds of stuff could really contribute a whole lot. But the first process is trying to document it, let them see some effort that you yourself, with the limited resources that you have, that you've documented these things, and then based on that, you can make an appeal to them to come and help you with that. The UN Heritage seems like a very good place to go, especially seeing some of those important buildings that were done in Liberia 100 plus years ago, to be able to help us preserve those buildings.
Well, I hope the requisite authority in Maryland County is listening. But we're here on the Night Talk, and my guest on the second segment is Dr. Donald L. Cassell Jr., an architect and a Master of Divinity, also the director of the Liberia Initiatives in Indianapolis, as well as a senior fellow at the Sagamore Institute in the USA. Maybe we might have one or two calls, especially from the academic people on campus, if anyone is listening and is interested in maybe asking a question or two. But we could squeeze in one call. But Doc, as we await the calls, what is your impression of Tubman University? Especially, you've been traveling in, I would say, big countries like the U.S. and I believe England, the
Asia.
education, Asia, and what have you. What is your impression here of Tubman University?
Well, the first thing is that I'm not a doctor.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, sir.
That's all right. I am an architect and
Okay.
a Master's of Divinity,
Okay.
and a scholar, so we'll accept that.
Okay.
But I have really appreciated the spirit that I see here and the amount of work. I guess I don't know. I just saw a whole lot of quality. The quality of the buildings, the quality of the grounds, the quality of the staff. I was really quite impressed with that. And I guess I'm happy with the trajectory. Liberia is still trying to catch up in some respect with itself, where it was in the First Republic, the level of capacity. So you had a tremendous value in the First Republic, and since the fall of that republic, it's been a destruction of value. And right now, with the ascendancy of Mrs. Salif, there's been a slow but certain turn toward recovery and restoration. So I'm encouraged by that, but we still have a whole lot of work to do to catch up with either Asia or Europe. There's quite a bit of effort we have to put through, but nevertheless, what is happening here is immensely encouraging, and I would like to be a part of it.
Still have a whole lot of work to do, in your words. In which area specifically?
I think the way the thing is of such that the needs are spread out in almost every sector, and the question one has to do is, which of the sectors will you prioritize to begin to tackle the needs that are spread out in every sector? And so I'm not sure that I can say one sector as opposed to the other. For me, I've seen the human capacity development as being primary.
So we could narrow that down to education.
Yes, you could narrow it down to education, but the human capacity sector that I'm talking about is not only in terms of sort of the basic formal and professional education that you talk about, but I'm talking about a philosophic turn of mind. So how do we, a renewed way of understanding the world and understanding our place in the world? What is our sense of vocation within the world? What are we called to do? And those kinds of so it's in some respect it's a deeper call to consider what is in fact capacity and things like that. So that is where I'm going to. So because human beings are so fundamental to institutions, to states, people have written from Confucius, the Chinese sage,
Right.
to John Stuart Mills, the English philosopher, is that the state structure often reflects the individuals within those structures. And so what you want to do is that you want to work as much as you possibly can so that develop within individuals a clear moral vision, a moral, spiritual, intellectual vision that can become, over a period of time, collective and affect the state for good. And so, for me, that would be the primary thing. But in terms of state order itself, I would say the first thing that has to be taken care of is how do you secure the state? That's the primary thing. All the people who know about states that I've read and know much more about it than I have always put the emphasis on the primacy of security, because if you don't have security, all is lost. So you have to start there. And I would say perhaps even preceding that, you have to focus on human capacity development. And that capacity development is not merely technical or professional in a formal sort of professional sense, but it has to do with more of a philosophical and religious and spiritual sense, how the person sees the world and how to see themselves within the world.
Now, one of the major problems at higher institutions of learning in Liberia today is that the students from the grade schools aren't up to the task. I'm sorry, but that's a fact.
Yes, you are right.
How do you think we can start training them and preparing them for, because it's going to be quite difficult. You would agree with me, sir, that it's going to be quite difficult to develop someone's mind, a mind which is not prepared for psychological change or spiritual change or what have you. They grow up in myths and beliefs which are maybe archaic or not close to this current time of So how do you think we can fix up this?
Well, that is a big problem.
Someone said we need an entire generation. What do you think of that?
Well, my position is that I encounter these students. I work with the students at universities, particularly in Nimba and Montserrado, and see some of these struggles. But I think the way one of the universities that I work with, they have concluded that even though the struggle is there, they still have the mandate to help as much as they can wherever they meet the student to tackle these problems, help to alleviate it. So, of course, we can talk about state policies that would help with elementary schools and whatnot. But you have to start where you are. You can. Some of these things are already in place. There's not much you can do about it. But you need to still start with where you are and then work from there. Work towards improving. And maybe the first generation that this kind of thing hit may not feel the full benefit, but to the extent that they are faithful, the second generation will in fact be the greater beneficiary. So our work, the way we should look at it, our work that we do now, even though it is maybe a few group of people that might appreciate our work, we must not think about the immediate gratification of our work, but how our work will be appreciated by posterity. So we're not working only to see today what happens. This vision carries on beyond us, beyond even our deaths. So we start with what we have. We cannot start with more than that. This is what we have, and that's where we need to start.
Okay, sir, I'll tell you where we are and what we have. we at a stage where the young people grow up believing that everything should be free. We are at a stage where they believe that you should litter the streets, for example. At a stage where they could vandalize anything as a means of showing their anger and frustration rather than narrowing it down to a civil discussion and negotiation. That's where we're at.
Yes, well, that's some of my leadership workshop. In fact, focuses on that. I teach. We use a Central European president, a guy called Václav Havel from the Czech Republic, and he is one of those. He wrote a book. At least the text we have is entitled "Politics, Morality, and Civility," and that's exactly what we're dealing with there. But those are only a few group of people that I'm working with. But that's where I'm able to start. And so, yes, the problem is very big, but we have to start where we are, and that sometimes may include ourselves. And when we can begin that, starting with ourselves, changing ourselves, then we can hope to change the others. Okay?
Okay, sir. So we want to say thank you very much. In closing, what's going to be your parting words?
Well, I want to encourage us to continue to work hard and not to not to look at the problem and say, well, it's too big and I can't do anything. You can always do something, even a small something you can do to contribute toward a meaningful solution. So the very thing that you mentioned with the young people, I think it starts with us. If we hold out a better example for them, I think these young people, we know a whole lot about imitation. Human beings always imitate other human beings. So if we hold up a fairly decent example of civility and morality to them, we can hope and pray that they will in fact embrace that way and perhaps build on it, become stronger in their convictions even than we are. But we must start with where we are.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
That was Mr. Donald L. Cassell Jr. He's an architect and a Master of Divinity. He's also the director of the Liberia initiatives at Indianapolis and a senior fellow at the Sagamore Institute in the USA. This has been the Night Talk. My name is Rochford Gardner. Thanks for listening.